I really thought I had it all, but actually all I knew was this relationship I had. I think at that point was 8 years of the relationship.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was me. That was who I was. That defined me. And I guess him not coming was almost like I lost a piece of me and then wondering how I was going to survive.
Hello, I'm Sam.
And I'm Amelia.
Welcome back to S3E08 podcast where we aim to build better mindset for better relationships.
Yeah, and this week on Mindset, Relationships, and Journey, we are talking about closing old doors. But first, have you heard of the term closing old doors for new doors to open?
I've heard of that statement. I've heard of it before.
It is quite a common term, and I feel like that term is something that's easier said than done because to close old doors, you have to let go of things that you know to try things in the unknown. So it is something that takes courage and takes, a lot to take action on.
Yeah, of course. It's bloody daunting. It's a big change.
Yeah.
But today we've got someone very special joining us who has exactly gone through that experience. Closing doors, going into a whole new country and opening new experience.
Opportunities. And this person is also the wife of another guest that we've had in the past, Shih. So he talked about fatherhood and also another episode on his journey in the career of radiology and also talking through the lens of being a patient as well. So the wife, Julie Shih, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah, so Julie, I think we spoke in the past, and obviously this is how we've got you on board. In the past, you've made that jump in terms of you've had quite a bit of a journey. Literally. From career to relationship, moving from Canada to Australia. Could you just explain a little bit more about that experience?
Yeah, definitely. So I guess the big question is, how did I get here? Why am I all the way here from Canada? I graduated in 2010 from a bachelor's degree in linguistics, and I knew I wanted to pursue a career in speech pathology. So I had applied to the very little universities that were there, didn't get in, and it totally broke my heart. And I had a friend that had an older sister here in Australia studying speech, and I reached out to that friend, and she told me that there's this company that helps apply for Canadians, North Americans for free to unis in Australia. So I thought, well, let me check it out. I mean, doesn't hurt. So I filled out some applications and it was totally free. I thought, got to be a scam, but no, everything went through and they actually communicated to me and I got all of my papers done that I needed to apply, and all it took was for me waiting for, I guess, an offer. And when I got the offer, found out I was coming to Australia.
Nice.
That happened in a very short amount of time, like 6 months
from
applying to figuring out that I was going to fly across the world to start a new life.
So when you got accepted, were you just like, hell yeah, I'm going to go? Or were you like, oh, what should I do? Like, what do I do now? Or
yeah, it was a big shock that it was really going to happen. I was so focused on my studies that's what I wanted. I didn't want to be delayed. I technically would have been delayed a year. At that time, I was just like, I need to just get that done. I don't want to delay it anymore. I need to be on track. I need to get my career going. This is what I want to do. So I just kind of went through the motions. And then when I think it finally hit me that this was happening, it was probably maybe 2 or 3 months before leaving that I was like, oh shit, like I'm leaving all my friends, all my family, my boyfriend at that time. But I guess it would have made it hard if I kept thinking about it. So I said, I just have to get through the motions. I just have to do it. And I just got to dive, I've just got to do it or else I'm never going to get it done.
Yeah.
And I thought the sooner I get it done, the sooner I'll be back to my life, so.
Yeah. Oh, so you had plans to return back to Canada.
Oh yeah, 100%. Everybody was like, oh, you're not going to come back. You're going to love Australia. You're never going to come back. And I said, of course I'm going to come back. Like, I've got my boyfriend here, this is my life. I've got all my friends. My roots are here. Like, how could I leave you guys? And 100%, they're like, no, you're going to meet an Australian boy and you're never going to come back. I will show you that I'm coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just studying and that's it. And that's purely what I envisioned myself doing.
Yeah. Fell in love with the spiders, the kangaroos, and the
man.
koalas.
Well, and that was the big thing too. I was like, oh, what could be in Australia? You know, like people
Snakes.
tell me, oh, it's so racist there. It's all going to just be Australians, all poisonous creatures. Like you're going to hate it. You know, it's hot. Like I was like, yeah, definitely won't love it.
How fast was the move or the transition? Because you said 6 months to accept your offer, and then what was the time frame from there? Was it 2, 3, 4 months?
No, I think it was the whole 6 months in general. It was like, I can't remember how long it took for me to get the offer, but I got the offer and the preparing to leave, I think was within the time frame of 6 months. I think it was like June sometime I probably got the answer, or maybe just a little bit before June, I think. And then I think I was moved in November 2011. So I got on the plane. I remember Halloween night.
Oh, wow.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, and I was so depressed because I love Halloween and it's such a big celebration for me. And I had to leave that day and miss Halloween.
Oh.
So I got on a plane and arrived November 1st. And
Wow.
so it was a really quick process from
Far
and there was a
out.
lot of stuff that I had to get done. Like there was a lot of health checks. There were a lot of had to make sure I was clean pretty much.
Yeah.
They
Jeez.
really check everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
The Australian government's really strict. So I think that was the thing that took really long
Yep.
with all the health checks and stuff. So
So a little bit about the relationship too, because you had a partner at the time or a boyfriend at the time. Was it an easy decision to say, I'm going to move over to Australia, I'll be back kind of thing? Or was he like very supportive at the time? Because long distance is quite
It's not easy.
sometimes
Yeah.
it's a hard decision for couples to make that.
yeah, it was hard, but I think we were kind of almost prepared for it because when I did my 4 years of uni, my bachelor's degree, I was already doing it away from home. So I was about 2 hours away from home. So we kind of sort of did a mini long distance. So we kind of experienced it in a way. We communicated a lot. He came to see me every few months. I came back to see him every few months. So we were kind of prepped in that sense. And he knew that I was always very career driven and, studies driven. And he knew that I was the type of personality, if I have my heart set on something, I'm going for it. I don't care. No one's getting in my way. And I told him that as well. So
Not even you.
and that was it. It was totally that. And he was like, okay. And the good thing was that he was always very, very supportive. Like he just let me be. I was kind of like the center, I guess, for him. And he just kind of fashioned life around me, which was really, really sweet of him. So there wasn't even a debate or a discussion about that. It was just like, okay, let's do this. Let's get this going, when he found out. So I think even for him, he just kind of tagged along for the ride. But I guess we were both very helpful. We were both like, oh, we'll just finish these 2 years. It's not going to be bad. You're going to come and visit me in Australia. We're going to have some fun. And then I'll visit you. And the time will go by so quick. 2 years just doesn't seem like a lot at that time, especially when you have a goal. So I guess we kind of just did it.
So that's good.
So it was a quick, easy thought process. Hey, like you guys just said,
Yeah.
yep, this is what I'm doing. There's not much to it.
Yeah,
Let's go.
Yeah, I think so. And I just don't think there was enough time to really think about it as well because it was that 6 months. It was just the decision was made and everyone knew that that's what I wanted to do was speech. Like, yeah, I was just so driven and I didn't want that break. So I guess everyone just supported me. Friends, family just was like, okay, let's get you there. Let's get this done and it'll be quick and we'll see you again.
That's so good though, to have that support network and everyone's like, yep, we'll get you what you need and just do it and we'll see you when you get back.
That's right. I was very lucky, I think, to have such supportive people in my life to just let me always do my thing. That's probably how I got this far as well. I've always had people kind of, you do you. That's what.
No, that's amazing.
Yeah, no, that's good because sometimes when you don't have those supportive people around you, you're always stuck thinking at that one moment like, oh shit, what do I do? Or should I be doing it? And then having that people behind you support you and be like, hey, just do it. You need to do it. That really gives you that kick in the ass to really make that move.
Yeah.
I think we tend to forget that we need that support sometimes.
Yeah. And I love your thought process because it's a bit like mine. It's like when you just want to do something, you're just going to do it. And then if you think too much about it, then that's what makes you like, oh, should I, shouldn't I? But then when you're like, okay, now I want this, let's just do it. And then you just go for it. And then you're like, You may regret it, like, oh, what did I make myself do? But like at least you've gone and done it and experienced it. So I love that kind of thought process.
I think that's right. There's definitely some things you have to plan and you have to kind of calculate carefully. But then there's just other things you just have to jump in and dive, because if you don't, it will take you ages to ever do it, or to even get to do it, And the more you think about it, the more you weigh up the pros and cons, and it freaks you out even more. So I'm the type, I really would rather not give myself that moment to freak out.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was able to get on that plane, because I'm such a family person. I'm such a friend person. They were my life, and to know that I had to leave all that behind would have, I think about it now and I get emotional,
Yeah, it would have been hard.
that I had to give all that up for 2 years. Now it's 12 years, you know, and it still gets hard for me, have moments where I, I miss my family. And, here comes the tears. But at the same time, I look, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have such a beautiful family now.
Yeah. No, it's that's why I think it's like closing old doors. And it may not be like closing as in like shoving them away or like pushing them away, but it's just giving up some parts of something in your life so that new opportunities can open. And I think that's really good that you gave yourself that chance to experience that. So yeah, I think that's really courageous, because not a lot of people would be able to. Because even for me, like after uni, I kind of imagined myself to move away or like experience a life somewhere else. But it's always that little point where I'm like, oh, maybe it's not the right time. Or like, oh, I don't know where I'm going to go. And then you kind of just start giving yourself excuses and making up things that kind of stop you from going where you want to go. So it's just, it's not an easy thing to do. Yeah. Also, now that you're married, so this relationship didn't end up happening. Do you mind just walking through a little bit like what happened like after you moved to Australia, and just share a little bit of that journey as well?
Getting here, the experience was an eye opener. I come to Brisbane and I couldn't even say Brisbane at that time. I called it Brisbane. I got down on the plane and was like, wow, this city is so beautiful. Like, what is this? Is this Australia?
Why did you choose Brisbane and not Melbourne and Sydney?
It was purely school. I think I got accepted into 2 of the unis. It was this and I can't remember the other one. I don't even remember the name. And for some reason, this one just seemed really attractive because the buildings, the UQ buildings was just, it just stood out to me. And I'm into that really like back in the middle ages looking type castle. That was my uni back home, was called Queen's University, and it had that kind of castle look. Cool. And I was like, University of Queensland, it's got Queen in there as well. Can't go wrong. So I just picked it.
Yeah.
And I was happy I did, because I walked in and it was just, wow, why is it so new and so clean and so fresh? Little did I realize that you guys were just picking up from cleaning up after the floods in 2011.
I forgot about those floods. Oh my God.
It didn't hit me until way later. And it wasn't too hard to adjust, because I guess I like new. I like experiencing new things, and I'm very much for trying new things. So in the beginning, I was just like, I've got a goal. I've just got to get myself set up. I've got to figure out where I want to do groceries, where I buy my basic necessities, So it was very much like, I've got stuff I've got to get done. Let's just do it. Let's just start exploring. And I did this all on my own. But I was really lucky that that girl that, helped me apply here, she was still around before she was going back to Canada. So I think she was just finishing up her degree. So she was nice enough to kind of like meet me and give me some hand-me-downs here and there, and just said, oh, this is usually where I go grocery shopping, so this would be a good place, and take this bus. It's very short and sweet, but it was still helpful. So I just got settled in. And then probably, I don't 100% recall, but I remember kind of thinking back that the nights were when it got lonely, when things were closed and you were sitting in your room and everyone's asleep, and the time difference, I think, with Canada, like if it's evening, nighttime for us, they're still at wee hours in the morning, still probably sleeping. So I had no one to talk to. I knew no one at that point, in Australia. I only had, my friends, my family, my boyfriend. So I got pretty obsessed with trying to communicate with my ex, my boyfriend at that time, and was always waiting around, waiting to talk to somebody from there. So I think that was the moment it really hit me that I was alone. in a foreign country.
Do you think the time difference and like the long distance, did that kind of drive the relationship apart because you couldn't really talk to each other? Because it sounded like communication was such a big thing for the relationship too.
I think there was a lot leading up to it. I guess what ended up happening was in the beginning, yes, communication was crucial to our relationship. And he was really good with it in the beginning, and he knew that that's what I needed. And he was trying to be there as best as he could. And, thank God for text messages and Facebook at that time. I was able to kind of find him as best as I could. And it worked for quite some time. Like he was pretty good and being there and supporting me. I think he knew it was tough for me. And it didn't really start breaking down, I guess, until I think at that time he was still doing uni. So I think when he was getting really into his studies, and then I probably got, into it as well once uni started for me. I guess we ended up having less time where our schedules would kind of meet for us to really chat. And I just remember, after a lecture, I'd look at the time and go, oh my gosh, is he awake still? I better quickly message him, pretty quickly. That was what kept me going while I was here, because I didn't have friends. I didn't have a social life yet, and that's just what I clung to, to get by. Yeah.
Yeah. And being alone too, that'd be pretty rough. You mentioned that he was planning to come here as well?
Yes. So at that time, studies kind of weren't really going the way I guess he kind of imagined, and he wasn't really sure if that's what he wanted to do. So me being a huge advocate for moving away from home to do things and live life, I was very much like, well, if you don't know what you're doing, why don't you just come to Australia? Why don't you just figure it out here? There's studies you can do here too. Maybe you can find a job. I know that there's lots of Canadians and Americans in Australia just figuring out life. You don't have to, fork out much. I've already got a place. You just live with me and should be all good. And he kind of thought about it and he was like, yeah, that's not a bad idea. I've never left home, I've always lived there. And so we kind of sort of started building this idea of coming here and what that would look like. And we even roped in, at that time, best friend. And kind of, because he didn't know what he was doing with his life either. So we're like, well, why don't the three of us just, get a place and we'll all live together and it'll be so cool, And we'd have fun, we'd travel, we'd work, we'd study, whatever it is. And we'd figure out life and then we'll go back home, we'll all be all refreshed, that was the whole plan. And it sounded really exciting. And I think I'd gone home after having that discussion. I flew back to Canada just to kind of meet up with family and see them again. And then at a time we were kind of prepping. So I had packed some clothes for him, put in my suitcase. And he's like, oh, just take these for now. I don't need it. And I'll see you in, can't remember how many months, but I'll see you in a few months. We had set up the rent and everything, chatted with the landlord, and they were happy for two other guys to live with me. And we just they weren't going to charge anything extra. We were just going to split it fairly between us, because knowing that they didn't really have work or whatever, I thought that's okay. It's my primary place of living. I'll bear most of the rent, and you guys maybe just help out where you can. So even then, he's given me a bit of cash to bring, and yeah, it looked like it was all going to head towards the right direction.
Jeez. Yeah.
So did he end up coming over for a little bit or no?
And I think this is where the relationship broke down.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a huge hit in the face. It didn't end up going to plan. I think it was mostly because parents kind of chatting with him and going, look, is this the right direction? You could go there and you could figure yourself out, but if you don't, you're going to be struggling. You don't have a job, you don't have any savings. Is this the right thing? So I guess they must have had a bit of a conversation and called me up and said, look, I'm sorry to break it to you, but this isn't going to be the best thing. I probably should finish my studies, or I should probably look at doing something else and making my life there and wait for you to come back,
Damn.
So that hit me really hard. I think at that point, I didn't realize it did. And I just went with it. I was like, cool, whatever. I've only got so much left, probably a year left at that point. We'll just work it out. And my friend, our mutual friend, he was like, oh yeah, no, I'll still come. All good. So he was happy to come. So that was still happening. And he did come after all. But yeah, unfortunately, my ex didn't make it. And that really started, I think our relationship then started to kind of slowly spiral downwards. Now that I reflect back, it didn't look like it then.
Yeah.
But at that point, that's when the heartbreak was setting in, and I was probably conversations that I was having was probably not going well with him, and I didn't realize that, and I was probably throwing a wall between us without realizing it, and I was starting to turn elsewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think I just felt like, I think at that point I felt like my support wasn't there for me anymore. You know, my rock was gone, and that was out, and that's what I was clinging on to getting through the next, year and a half. I was like, oh, I'm so excited, I was gonna have somebody here for me, and he's gonna be all mine, and that's it, and yeah, that obviously really, really dug deep.
Yeah, and even like when you're feeling very alone, and then you had the high hope that someone that you know is gonna be here, and then they're like, "Oh, sorry, I can't. Like, I'm not going to follow through anymore." I can imagine how much that would have like just not like that he intentionally hurt, but how much that would have hurt for you because you're like, "I have hope. Like, I have someone here," and then you're like, "Oh, I'm back alone again."
Yeah, yeah. I didn't realize how alone I was until after that. And now reflecting back, like at that moment, like I said, I just go through the motions and I just deal with whatever gets thrown in my way without thinking.
Yeah,
But yeah, having that reflection, I was like, I didn't realize how little I had going on for me here, and how little I had in my life, actually. I think at that point, I really thought I had it all, but actually, all I knew was this relationship I had. I think at that point was 8 years of the relationship.
wow.
Yeah.
I was just, that was me. That was who I was. That defined me. And I guess him not coming was almost like I lost a piece of me, and then wondering how I was going to survive
Yeah,
the next,
all these
Year or
questions
something,
that's
yeah.
flowing in.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
So then how long after that? Was it a few months afterwards? That's when you said, no, we should come to a mutual agreement to go split ways? Is that sort of the situation?
It kind of unfolded on its own. We never really kind of had that discussion because of that. I think I just started seeking things because I was lonely, and that hit me hard. I guess you could almost look back, if you look at it now, it's like your parents would call it your teenage years acting out, like I acted out. I started going out, like I always loved clubbing and dancing and getting out there, but this time I was going out and I was starting to meet people, meet guys, and started kind of exploring that, and loved the attention of the guys and the flirting. And I guess that kind of then opened up the door and was like, oh, wow, there's like a whole sea of males out there, like, woo.
Plenty of fish in the sea.
Wow, what was I doing? And I kind of got curious. I was 8 years, so I must have been like 16 when I met my boyfriend at that time.
Yeah.
So what did I know? I had a couple of crushes, but it wasn't really anything real. So I opened up my eyes, and so I started kind of like enjoying it. And I was always had a very honest relationship with my boyfriend at that time, and said to him, look, I just, I went clubbing, I met these really cool guys. Like there's this one guy in particular, he seems interesting. And then, straight out asked me, like, what do you mean? Like, well, what does this mean?
Interesting. Eh?
And I think, and I don't even think I knew what that meant. I just said to him, hey, like this guy is asking me to go out, for a bite or something or a drink or whatever. Should I do it? And he was like, well, what is this? Like, is this a date or is this I said, I honestly don't even know what it is. I'm just curious to meet this guy. I'm just curious to know more, and are you okay with that? And he was just like, well, I guess if that's what you need to do it, then go for it, and that just goes back to, how he's always supported me. So yeah, I actually ended up going out with this guy. Again, that was an eye opener. I was like, oh, is this what, like, I guess he must have treated it as a kind of ish date. And I guess I was like, oh, this must be a date then, And I went back, reported back, and I was like, okay, this is where things get a little bit weird because it's how much do I tell him? How much is he comfortable with? And I think we had that discussion, and he kind of drew his boundaries and his lines. And I think there was more coming, like there was more dates to come. So at that point, it was like, okay, well, what do we want to do? We need to talk about us, like I'm okay with you figuring out yourself, and I'm okay with you figuring out what you want to be and who you want to be. But what does that mean for us?
Yeah.
I think I got caught in the moment, and I think I must have been so, like, obviously now I'm reflecting, I must have been so heartbroken. I just said to him, I'm really interested in where this is going. And this guy's got all the things going for me at the moment. He's got work, he's got a life, he's established.
Shit.
I just broke it to him.
Jesus slapped him in the face.
I really did. I think about it now and I was like, that was the harshest, most stupidest thing I've ever said. And to this day, I wish I could have taken it back. But I just hit it hard and I was like, I don't know where this is going, but this is what I see. And it seems pretty cool. And he's like, well, I don't think we can keep going on like this, you know? And then I was like, well, so is this it for us? Like we pretty much then and there decided like, this is it for us. And I guess at that moment, I was kind of like, oh, whatever, this is it for us. You know, like we were so in love. We talked about marriage. We talked about life together. You know, I was like, he's just letting me go and let me do my thing. I'll just do my thing and we'll get back together. You know, that was me at that moment in time. So I kind of was like, okay, cool, whatever. You know, probably a few weeks or a few later, he messaged me and check up on me. And I was like, oh yeah, things are great. You know, how are you? And we're trying to chat casually. And he's like, and I was like, oh, so what about us? Like, what are we doing? And he's like, I can't really think about the future right now, you know? And I was like, whoa, what are you talking about? Like, where's this coming from? And I guess we had a bit of a heart to heart. I guess he really drew the line there and said, look, we can't keep communicating like this. Like, that's it. We need to just break it from here. Like, it's either us together or none at all. So I made that choice of closing that door and going, okay, well, you're not coming. I'm enjoying myself. I'm having fun. I'm learning new things. Like, I guess we just end it there. And again, back in my head, I went, oh, I'll just go back home and we'll be fine again, you know? So I think that what got me going. So I just continued life as is.
Damn.
It's a hard decision to make because like you kind of just don't know like if you do go back and then like trying to get back together and then you're like, oh, but what if life is better if I choose this other path? It's really hard.
Yeah, it really was a fork in the road for me at that time. Like, you know, if I go this way, what will life give me? If I go this way, what will life give me? You know?
Yeah.
And I think, like I said, because I'm that type of person, I just go and jump in and dive. I always like to take the risk. I always like to experience the new. So anything fresh for me is like, let's just go for it, you know, without thinking about the future consequences. So at that time, there was no, well, what's going to happen with us later on? It was just like, oh, it'll be fine. You know, we'll work it out. That's it. There's a new door there. There's so much opportunity. Let's just go. And I was just having the time of my life, really partying, meeting boys, getting the attention, you know, and that just spiraled into, oh gosh, a whole 6 months of
That.
that.
So you're saying that after you guys drew that fine line in the relationship, did you ever reflect back on it and say, well, fuck, did I actually make the right choice or anything like that?
I think I had moments, but I think I didn't let myself get there because I think it was too painful.
Yeah.
Because I think that along came with all of the why I left, you know, who I left behind. It was just a lot of loneliness and hurt there. And I didn't want to feel that. I wanted the new. I wanted the fresh, you know, because that was hopefully going to make me forget about what I left behind and who I left behind and how much I sacrificed to get to where I am today.
Yeah.
So I kind of just went, this sucks, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. You know, it was always like, we'll figure it out. We'll get there. You know, it'll be over soon. You know, let's just focus on what's in front of me and let's just keep moving.
Yeah.
I think that was my mindset at that time. And now that I think back to it, I'm glad I had that mindset because I was the train that just kept going. You know, like if I didn't do that, I think there was so many times I would have probably just pulled the plug and went home.
Yeah.
You know, especially because my relationship had fallen apart. I could have very easily just went, forget this. I'm going to go fix my relationship and gone home. At that time when you're young, you know, your relationship is everything. That's all you know.
Yeah.
So you very would have stupidly just went, forget it. We'll just forget about the studies. Let's fix this love of my life thing first. And then.
Plus it was 8 years relationship.
Yeah,
that's a long
it's a
time.
big one.
Yeah, that's such a big thing to give up.
Yeah, there was, definitely. It grew in that time. I was 16 and became, you know, an adult at that time. So it was all I knew. So I'm glad I didn't really look back, I guess.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean I never had, you know, I do, but it's a very quick thought and it's a very quick, I can't go there. And I think it's also, like I said, it comes with a lot of pain. So when I do unlock it, it freaks me out.
Yeah.
And then I just don't want to go there. Like even now.
Thinking back, I think it was really good that you both were on the same page in relation to the communication. It was really good that he was willing to call you, message you and be like, hey, let's actually talk. Personally, I don't think I would be able to, because just exactly that, the time differences, not actually seeing the person that you're with. And yeah, if you're in a different country, you're lonely. You can't do the things that you want to do with that other person. And I think the capability of you both to just come back together collectively and go, okay, let's talk about this. Let's actually communicate. And it was really cool how you actually reported back to him, telling him, hey, this is what I'm doing. And he was okay with him, giving feedback. Because I know most guys would be like, what the fuck? You're talking about the dudes? Fuck that shit.
Get away from that guy.
Well, I mean, I kind of censored it. He definitely did say something along those lines, but it always came back to you're first. You need to do you. So
that takes a lot of trust in each other too.
And I think that's probably what got us so far, is that we had a lot of honesty, we had a lot of trust and communication with each other. But unfortunately, the distance then slowly started to break that away. And the trust kind of did start to waver a little bit because, like you said, I couldn't really see him. So I didn't know what he was doing, and your mind starts to wander. Being a girl, you think of a million images in your head and you're going, oh, why isn't he answering me now? What could he be doing? What's happening? And the trust and jealousy and all of that starts to hit in, and you start to think like, is there other things happening? And I that probably was also a little bit of a catalyst to us ending it as well. It was just the distance really eating away at what we did build, the foundations that we did have. And I think we hung on for as tightly as we could. And, even when we said goodbye, we still very much loved each other at that point. And it wasn't something we were willing to really want to give up. But I think because we had to go that directions, I think I just had a totally different mindset and goal in life. And he was, it was harsh when I said, oh, the other guy had so much going on, but it was true. He didn't know what he wanted in his life.
Yeah.
He wasn't really going the direction he wanted, and he was still working that out. And so I think that probably started to drive us as well.
Yeah.
It's just, we were just in two different places and we were trying to put it together and it just wasn't going to fit. So I think eventually something was going to break us apart. It wasn't going to work. It was a hard way to, I guess, realize that.
Yeah.
Well, they say it's bittersweet, right? Those changes, sometimes it happens, right? And it's unfortunate in the fact that, and how you explain it is very much like if you've got a set goal and you're on a train track and it comes to a fork, and if the passengers aren't ready to ride along with you, then they've got to get off that stop and go in a different direction. And I think it was just a bittersweet moment in the fact of your journey in your life that you've said, look, I know what I want to do and I need to get it in order for that to satisfy you. And I think it was good in terms of his perspective and the fact that he was okay for that, even though it wasn't obviously something that he wanted. And I think when we actually look back at the situation at that time where you're obviously you're going out, meeting different guys, I guess that would be your coping mechanism at the time to help you get over, the loneliness feeling and just getting your mind off those thoughts. I think you also mentioned that you had chats with your cousin at the time that was sort of going through a lonely sort of moment as well. Could you explain a little bit about that story? Because she was in a similar situation, like a long-term thing, or
kind of dealing with that loneliness. I reached out to, trying to reach out to as many people I can. And I was really close to my cousin back then. And she had also moved away from home to do uni. And so she had to kind of deal with the long distance from away from family and friends as well. And we kind of just connected on that level, and she kind of gave me tips and tricks on kind of how she dealt with it. And she was very much like, look, I'm lonely. I just like to be around people and like to hear the noise. So, maybe just get out and just be around people. So that kind of got me going, well, I like being around people. Yeah, I could do that. And where do I go? What do I do? How do I be around people? So in the beginning, I went, I'm going to explore Brisbane. So I got on a train, took it to the city, just sat in the middle of Queen Street Mall, Maya Center, and just sat there chatting on my phone with people and just hearing the noise and seeing people and just people watched in a really creepy way.
That's cool.
And I guess that kind of helped a little bit of that, along with coping with that loneliness. I realized, yeah, I don't have my boyfriend at that time anymore. I don't have him anymore. I don't have my family. Well, what else? What can I do to help with this loneliness? How I can't just, I'm not the type of person to just sit and drown in sorrow, and regret my decisions. And I think the main thing for me too is I'm very much one to show you, I want to show people I've achieved it. I've done it, like I've proved you wrong, that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
So I didn't want to look sad. I didn't want to look like I hated my time. I didn't want to look like I suffered or anything like that. So I was like, I got to make something of myself. And that meant I had to deal with that loneliness. So I was very much reflecting back and going, okay, well, what did I have back home that I loved and that I need, And the big thing was, I had a dog. I love kids. Like, okay, well, how can I turn that into something, Like, how can I get rid of that loneliness and make something of myself and make myself useful? Because I hate being bored as well. So sitting in, a 4-wall bedroom was just stupid to me. I was like, I can sit here, watch as many Netflix, I don't even know if Netflix was around at that time, Netflix shows as possible and just, hear the silence of my room, or I can actually go out and be useful. So I started Googling things, and I think I must have somehow Googled and found RSPCA, went out and tried to do volunteering. So I volunteered on weekends to walk dogs, cuddle dogs, whatever it was,
cool.
And that
best job ever.
Yeah. Oh my God, loved it. The puppies, the amount of puppies.
Oh, cute.
And I somehow ended up babysitting. I don't even know how that ended up happening. I was like, I need a job because Australia can get expensive and I want to buy things, like I don't want to just come here and study. I want to have fun. So I somehow stumbled across babysitting and interviewed for this job that ended up being, I think my roommate interviewed for that job too. I didn't know she did. And somehow we were chatting about something and that came up, and realized very quickly that was the job I took. But I mean, I think that was the best. I'm glad I somehow stumbled across babysitting because they became my family. I found my own family here. At that time, they had 2 kids and a third one was coming. And it was just so much of my concentration could be on them. And it was only, a few hours on a weekday. It wasn't much. I probably did 2 or 3 days, and it was just like maybe 3 hours or something. And it was just having fun with them, putting them to bed, showering them, all that kind of stuff. And that was it. But Georgie really got me through it. That's who hired me. And she really took me in as family and listened to all my whole life story, I guess, and trusted me with her kids.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for that.
That's amazing. Like, it's just funny because like everyone is just like one individual to the world, but then like one person can just change so much for someone else, no matter how they take you in, how they talk to you, how they shared their story, and they can just change something for you. And that person really changed, like that turning point for you in Australia, not feeling lonely anymore. That's really powerful.
Yeah, I think so. And I think because I did those things, I had stuff for myself now. I had made myself something here, and that kind of got me going and realized there's more to it than what I thought I had.
And just studying and
yeah. And I was always very clear, I'm not going to make friends. I'm just here to study, But I guess letting go of one chapter meant that I was able to kind of see more. It was like almost like you had tunnel vision, foggy glasses or something. All you saw and all you knew. And you're like, how could the grass be greener on the other side? And I think once you let go, you realize there is. And I'm only saying that now is only because I can reflect back now. At that point in time,
you weren't really thinking of it.
I was not thinking about all those things. I was, like I said, I just had goals and I had places I needed to be and things I needed to do. So I just did them. But now that I reflect back, I was like, oh, those are all for a reason. Those are all for a purpose.
Which really like leans into the next part that we're going to ask you, is the mindset shifts that you've noticed for yourself from like even the younger you or even the you before you moved to Australia. And that sounds like one of them, because you just want to focus on study. You don't want to make friends because you just want, it's like a short-term thing. So that sounds like one of the big key mindset shifts is like letting that go and be like, you can make friends, you can go out there and just like make a life for yourself outside of studying. Was there any other mindset shifts that you've also learned from like for yourself throughout this journey?
The self-reflection, the self-talk that I built. I didn't realize how much I learned to talk to myself and reflect with myself that was one thing I guess I never really did. And I didn't realize that was even a thing. And because I didn't have too many people I knew here and couldn't really chat with people back home, it just wasn't the same. So I think I ended up talking to myself quite a lot and getting myself through things. And I didn't use any particular tools or strategies or anything, but it was really learning to just, I did something. Let's think about it now. Let's move through this. Okay, what could I've done better? What worked really well? What did I really enjoy? What did I hate? I kind of just went through these lists in my head. And I think that just what got me through going and knowing, okay, this is what I need to change. Let me go do that now. So I think life almost became like a list of goals and a list of things I just needed to accomplish. And okay, I did this really well. Let's move on now. Let's do something else. Because I had to just like occupy myself. I had to get myself through.
Oh, that's great. I think that's really good. A really good way to just build up on yourself and grow and stuff, because that's also how I think as well myself. It's like something happened. It's like, why did that happen? Is it something that I didn't do? Is there a situation that happened? And then like, how can I make it better? And what can I do next time? And it's like just thinking about all these things. And then it's like you're trying to piece together a puzzle. But okay, how do I move forward? So yeah, I think it's a great tool. And learning that and noticing that you have that capability to do that as well through your journey is great.
It definitely was hard. It's not something that comes easy.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of realization and a lot of admitting to yourself that you don't know it all, which I'm not used to. Like I'm very much like I'm the know-it-all and I can do everything and I don't need people in my life, but realizing actually I do need people in my life. If I'm going to get through this, I need to let people in. I need to ask for help and realizing that it's okay to ask for help. I think that was the hard part for me as well.
Yeah.
So I think the loneliness brought on a lot of different mind shifts, and a lot of different new skills that I have today that I can kind of use along, career, relationship, raising children even.
That's cool. Yeah, I think a lot of people coming to the realization that, they've got issues, or not just issues, but they've got things roadblocks that they need to tackle. And reflecting sometimes brings up past memories. And I think people sort of put that roadblock and say, no, I don't want to think about it because I don't want to feel that feeling that I had back then. So I think it's cool that you came to a decision to actually make a reflection, especially by yourself, being lonely in a new whole country. And yeah, I think that's awesome that you did that.
Well, I think it's not just realizing. Sometimes it's just you need to be honest with yourself and being okay to be honest with yourself and accepting the truth. And then, yeah, maybe I didn't do something that was like great, or I didn't do the right thing. And it's just accepting that and be like, okay, yeah, I didn't do the best thing for myself, but what do I need to do now to change this? And I feel like you did that really well.
Yeah.
Throughout everything that you've just spoken about.
Thank you. But yeah, I think that's definitely it, is being honest and letting yourself feel. Like I said, I did close a lot of things up and I don't want to talk about certain things, but I've also let myself feel a lot of things. And I think coming from an Asian family and an Asian background, our parents don't express a lot of feelings. We don't learn to kind of communicate our thoughts and what we need and what we want. But I've really, because, like I said, I'm lonely here. I've only had feelings there and I've had to work out what they were and how to deal with them. And so I think I've let myself feel a little bit more, which led to then me problem solving and working out resolutions and how to cope with them.
Yeah. And understand yourself a bit more too.
Yeah. I definitely had a lot of self-growth because I was by myself. I had to learn who I was. Breaking apart from my, relationship at that time, I had to figure out who I was again. I didn't know who I was and what I wanted. Well, I knew what I wanted. I wanted to finish my studies and go home. But other than that, what did I really want? Who was I going to be without this person? What did I like besides him? What did I dislike? I really had to figure all that out, and it was hard going through that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Went through a lot.
So you've always been a go-getter, okay? So it seems like your past journey, your past experiences, you've always been like, yep, I have a clear direction. I know what the fuck I want. I'm just going to get it. Now, when you reflect back on your journey, was there any sort of key moments that you've try to instill that experience, that go-getter sort of mentality or mindset to others in your life?
Definitely, all the time. So scrap it, all the loneliness talk that I've just had and, how it was horrible and blah, blah, blah. Just now. Come to Australia. It's a great place to be. No, I'm always selling it because I guess I had two experiences. I had the first one where I moved away for 2 hours from home, and then I had a moving across the world. And both times I grew and learned so much. So I'm always often kind of pushing for that because I think that's the only way to grow is away from your parents. And I was just very lucky I had parents that let me do that. They've always said, go for it. I definitely did that with my brother. When I got married to Eddie in 2018, I thought that was the perfect opportunity because my brother was going to come to Australia anyways for the wedding. So at that point, my brother had been living at home, doing uni from home, and I just kind of saw how much my parents were really coddling him. They don't want to admit it, and they don't want to say that they really kind of babied him, but from outside eyes, I definitely saw it. He wasn't paying his own phone bills. He wasn't, he was just making money, enjoying it, going to school and being looked after. And I thought he really needs to get out there. He's finished uni now. He needs to find a job. He can't find one. Toronto is just so saturated. It's so hard to find work. You've got to stand out. So I just said to my parents, you know what? Why don't you just let Lenny stay in Australia after the wedding? He can figure out life here. And I can look after him, quote, quote, look after him, push him out and get him to live life. And they were not really for the idea. My dad, he's usually pretty good. He doesn't really care too much. He lets us be. But my mom was like, there's nothing there. Like, why? You're pulling another kid away from me. And luckily at that time, I was selling that idea to my brother. He had found a course here that he could do around graphic design. So I said, well, perfect. How long's the program? He's like, a year. I'm like, done. Do it.
Yeah.
Come here, live with me, and just do the course. And then after that, find a job, whether it's here, whether it's Canada, doesn't matter. So it did take some convincing. And finally, he did make the move. And, he's probably got his own story to tell. But in my eyes, I think that was the best thing for him because he was able to explore and do things without not under the roof of parents and think for himself, see what it's like to live alone. He did end up living alone for a little bit and he did live with me for a little bit and realized it was just too hard to live with me. I tried my best to kind of push him and let him figure out things independently, but there to protect him as well. And I guess you could call it tough love. He probably thought I was just throwing him in the deep end and not caring for him and not supporting him, but it was tough love. I really wanted him to get the experience that I had. And I guess after all of that, I think he did succeed. He ended up leaving a little bit earlier. He finished his course. He left earlier. He got home and he ended up getting a job. Nice. He ended up moving out.
Oh, nice.
And he got his own apartment and it was beautiful, and, now he's living his life. And I said to him, would you ever live back home? I could never do that. And I'd like to say it's because he had the experience here. I don't know. He may think differently, but that's what I see.
Yeah. No, that's
great. Is that because he could let go and try something. So I guess with all of that being said, I think everybody should do that.
Everyone should come to Australia.
It changes lives. And even my friend that ended up coming here, again, he can speak for his own experiences, but in my eyes, he definitely succeeded as well. It was tough for him here. He really struggled and didn't have a good experience. He was very honest about that. But I mean, when he went home, he too ended up getting a really good job. I think he's got his own place now. From memory, when I last spoke with him, he had bought a place. So
nice.
I mean, how can you say it didn't work?
You're a life changer. Australia needs to endorse you.
Yeah, okay.
I know.
I think the biggest thing there, well, the takeout there is
takeaway.
Well, okay. The biggest thing from that is you've got to just YOLO it and try it until you bloody experience it. That's when it opens your eyes. And I think that the parents definitely do restrict you in some way, like especially if they're the traditional, from the Asian perspective, they're very conservative, want to hold you back. And I think until you step yourself out of that and experience life, the whole reality, then it's really a big slap in the face and you're like, oh shit, this is a different life. Your brother sort of experienced obviously living by himself. That sort of opened up a whole new chapter for him. And I think it is really important when we reflect in terms of sometimes we've got to put ourselves in that uncomfortable position to close those old doors, and that will lead to opening new doors and a new chapter, a new journey for you. That's one of those biggest roadblocks that we always face in life.
Yeah. Obviously, like with like calculated risk too. You can't just feel like, I'm just going to go for it.
Oh, no, I don't calculate anything.
Yeah.
It's YOLO forever.
It's worked out well for you. So,
Yeah.
Yeah. But moving into 3 key things that you've learned from just going for it, because it seems like it's working out well for you. But like, what are the 3 key things that you've learned from just having that great mindset of just doing it?
Oh, that's going to be hard to summarize. 3 things. I don't know if I'm going to answer the question, but I guess the big takeaways are really is just dive. I can't even,
Dive.
I don't know.
Just
Nice.
dive.
Go
off the
for
cliff.
it. Just dive in and just do it. Don't think. That's all I want to say. Because I think that's really got me far. And it led me to a lot of experiences and a lot of journeys and learning to self-reflect. Yes, you can dive. Yes, you can jump off that cliff, but you have to be able to reflect after. You have to be able to pick yourself up and go, okay, I've taken that step now. What did that get me? Don't regret it. Don't think of it as a negative experience, I think is how you're going to get through it, is think of it, everything's happened for a reason. My mum's always taught me that. And going by that motto really, really helps as well, because I just go, I've lost a lot of friends along the way. I've lost a lot of relationships along the way. And I never think of it, I never think back as, oh, that sucks. That was so shit. I should have done that differently. I should have fixed that or whatever. I just went, look, that chapter's done. That happened for a reason. And now it's opened up something else, So I think those were some of the big things is you've got to just let things go, and you've got to let things happen the way they need to happen and accept it, because the more you look back at how you could have done things differently, and you'll never take that plunge. So I think the type of reflection you do is important. It's not a regret kind of reflection. It's more like, this happened, great, okay, let's move on from that now. How can we gain what we're missing from that and somewhere else? I'm not sure if I
Yeah, those are great. I think those are all really, really good, and I agree with it, because that's also how I think, like my thought process as well. And like, if you even physically, if you put yourself in like a room full of doors, like you might have closed like an old door, and you're looking at that door that's closed. You don't even look behind you and all around you and see all the other doors that are open. So it's just an analogy. If you're looking back and just looking at what you've closed and regretting, oh, should I have done that or should I have not? You don't realize everything else that could be opportunities around you. So yeah, I think it's great.
It's like what Dory says, just keep swimming.
Yeah, just keep swimming.
Eventually she found what she needed to, right?
Yeah, exactly. Was it 42
Wallaby Sherman? I don't know. And to think I watched that back in the day, not really clicking that was Australia.
Yeah.
And here I am.
Oh yeah,
Shit,
true. Was
true.
it Sydney? Yeah, Sydney.
Yeah.
I never found it though.
All right. Well, thank you again, Julie, for joining us and sharing your experiences. I think your journey holistically is a really big one that many people can obviously learn from as well. It's just taking that risk, YOLOing it in some degree, but obviously there are some components that you need to be a little bit more calculated. You just got to do it.
Just do it,
Yeah.
reflect, and then continue pushing forward.
Yeah. So it's all about closing old doors and opening new doors. So
But before we end it, was there any socials or links that we can share with others so that people can find you? Or
I'm pretty bad with it. I do have my speech pathology one, pep talk speech. That's one, but I'm pretty bad with that. And I've got my little family that, I kind of try to post up pictures of my little one. I can't remember the name of that one.
That's good. We'll share it in the
embarrassing?
links.
I think it's Miss Jaylin. I think that's the one. Yeah, if you want to see my little family, that's where they're at.
And follow along.
awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you so much again for joining us and sharing such a big journey and story. And it's not easy to just share that as well. So really appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Well, thank you again, guys, for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye.
Peace.